Drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%. And I don't know who the 9% is.
I'm not sure either, sir.
But down 91% by sea.
And Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said it's only the beginning.
We've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco-terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves and allowed them to come across the border. Cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations.
Now, the talk amongst Democrats and much of the media has been that second boat strike, and that was addressed by the secretary.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war.
So let's look at the legal justification for just one moment that the administration is using for the attack on these drug boats. By combining several legal frames, they find the legal ground for the strikes on these boats off Venezuela. One, they look at the maritime drug control laws. That allows the Coast Guard, for example, to board, inspect, and prosecute drug cartel members. They've also designated the traffickers as terrorists, unlawful combatants. They've added in the idea that a non-international armed conflict exists with the drug cartels, and then their fourth is the U.S. constitutional right to self-defense. Now, Democrat Senator Mark Kelly, he doesn't buy it.
That is against the Geneva Conventions. That's against the laws of war, which we should always be abiding by. We're the United States of America. We are not Russia. We're not Iraq. We're not Iran. We have to hold our people to a higher standard. This is really serious.
He's talking about the follow-on strike, the second strike on a singular drug boat, the one that much of the press is talking about, where there are reportedly survivors after the first strike and a second strike hit those survivors. The initial report came from the Washington Post, but the New York Times now has a report out, and it contradicts what was reported by the Washington Post. In fact, it says that Hegseth did not order the killing of the survivors. And for all of this hand-wringing, for all of this conversation, it's important to remember, is it genuine? Is this concern over, for example, the Geneva Convention? Or is this yet another example of Trump derangement syndrome? Anything and everything to attack, even through Pete Hegseth, the president, Donald Trump. Well, one indicator on the sincerity of this attack is how did they react when President Obama launched over 540 missile attacks during his terms, thousands and thousands of missiles, one of which targeted an American citizen. I'll let you be the judge on the sincerity, or yet another opportunity to simply flex your TDS. Joining me now is former Navy JAG officer Don Brown. Don, thanks for being with us here today. You're a JAG officer. You are of the type that are being invoked today. A lot of JAG officers appearing on CNN or MSNBC talking about violations of the Geneva Convention in this second boat strike. What say you?
Well, good to be back with you, Will. I say that's ridiculous. Listen, the legality of protecting American citizens on the high seas is vetted in international law and goes back to the beginning of the Republic when Thomas Jefferson sent the Marines and the Navy in the Mediterranean against the Barbary pirates. Lincoln seized the RMS Trent, and even FDR ordered the Navy to shoot and sink German U-boats almost a year before Pearl Harbor. We can protect our people on the high seas, and it goes into custom. The statutes that you cited are important, but the inherent right of the commander-in-chief under Article 2 of the Constitution gives President Trump the right to do this. But the difference is this, Will, we lost more Americans in 1 year to fentanyl than 10 years to the Vietnam War. And, all of us know of folks who have lost their kids. These are weapons of mass destruction. The consequences are high. And if that boat was still in the water, we had every right to take it out because it was carrying, by all accounts, weapons of mass destruction. I applaud Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, and President Trump in taking action here to protect Americans.
Okay, I want to follow up on that last point, but it seems that there's two buckets for this conversation. One, the legal framework, which we've just laid out, and you added the Article 2 powers of the president to conduct these strikes. The second bucket, though, is the one that is currently at the forefront of the conversation everywhere else, and that is the second strike on this one drug boat where there were reported survivors. Now, you heard the Secretary of War. It's the fog of war, something that journalists are very, and by the way, I think he would probably say something similar about JAG officers, are very unfamiliar with. It's the second guessing. It's the looking over the shoulder of guys that make critical decisions in the moment. And it's very easy for a journalist sitting in a studio in New York City to say, you know, what one should or shouldn't have done. But what do you say about this conversation of the second strike on that boat?
Right. Sure. First of all, it should not be the role of JAG officers to second guess the commander-in-chief, but to reinforce good order and discipline in the military. Here's what I say. Those boats have weapons of mass destruction that will take out Americans. If the boat is still in the water with those drugs on it, whether some terrorist is hanging on or not, you blow it the hell out of the water because it's going to kill Americans. That's exactly what I say, Will.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you joining us today to look into this issue. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate you.
All right. Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.